The mountains of Tennessee are known for their rugged beauty and enduring spirit. However, after the Civil War, the mountains of Tennessee became the lifeblood of a state struggling with financial disaster. For the mountains provided coal, which in turn provided jobs and a viable revenue stream into the state coffers. Needing men to mine the coal, the state began to lease its prisoners to mining companies, in exchange for the mining companies housing and providing for these inmates. It allowed the mining companies to have cheap labor, and it relieved the state of the financial burdens of incarceration. The losers in this arrangement, however, were the free miners, who had to compete with this cheap labor. Tensions rose, and in 1891 the free miners fought the state militia in what would be known as the Coal Creek Wars. While the militia succeeded in suppressing the uprising, the citizen outcry led to the end of the prisoner leasing system. Still needing money, the state decided that it would use the prisoners to mine coal for itself. That decision led to the building of Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary in 1896. Located next to Petros, Tennessee, Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary was specifically built so that the prisoners could mine coal directly for the state. Day after day, prisoners were sent into the Frozen Head mine, and the coal was extracted and refined inside of the prison walls. The conditions became unbearable for the prisoners, however, and after numerous deaths, cave-ins, riots, and hostage situations attributed to the prisoners being forced into the mines, the mining operation ceased in 1966. Prisoners who once had tasks to stifle aggression now sat in cells and contemplated violence, revenge, and escape. Conditions within the prison deteriorated to the point that Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary, now a maximum security prison, became known as the end of the line, for it was a place with little hope and a lot of hostility, cruelty, and savagery. Most prisoners had a life sentence and had nothing to lose by creating havoc within the prison walls in a bid for attention and in some cases recognition of the conditions in which they were living. Additionally, racial tensions inside of the prison walls mirrored the social climate of the time. For example, James Earl Ray, the man who assassinated Martin Luther King Jr., was incarcerated at Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. In 1981, after he was stabbed 22 times by black inmates, an ambush that he somehow survived, 7 white prisoners retaliated by escaping their cells, confiscating a gun from a guard, and shooting black prisoners while they were locked in their cells. 2 black prisoners were killed and 2 were wounded, and the white men responsible became known as the Magnificent Seven within the prison walls. By 2009, Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary had reached the end of its useful life as a prison. The remaining inmates were transferred, and the doors were closed on a past that witnessed death and carnage on a daily basis. However, it seems that prisoners who struggled to be heard in life are now speaking out in death, for Brushy Mountain has become known as one of the most haunted locations in Tennessee. It was due to this designation that the investigators of Soul Sisters Paranormal traveled to Tennessee to determine for ourselves if Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary really is haunted.
Set that alarm off one more time, and we'll leave this space. Set it off.
Did I make you mad? You want me to leave?
Upon our arrival to Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary, we knew that this would be unlike any other location that we have investigated. The property is vast, and there are numerous buildings which used to serve as intake areas, subterranean solitary confinement cells known as the Hole, a gymnasium, a chapel, and the cell blocks, where almost each cell holds a story of violence or attempted escape by the inmates who used to exist within. As investigators, we knew that we had a lot of locations to cover with our equipment, and because there were only 2 Soul Sisters investigators on this investigation, we were joined by 2 experienced investigators from End of the Line Paranormal. Jamie and Tiffany routinely investigate at Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary, so we took advantage of their knowledge of the facility by teaming up with them for this investigation. Before setting up our equipment, Jamie and Tiffany gave us a detailed tour of the penitentiary, pointing out such areas as the Magnificent 7 shooting location and the cell block that used to hold James Earl Ray. However, because the walls of this prison bore witness to extreme violence and murder, it seems that each area had the potential to exhibit paranormal activity. As such, we deployed all of our stationary equipment in the hopes of capturing some of these paranormal claims. For example, we set up a stationary night vision video camera, a laser grid, and a voice recorder in the area known as The Hole. This former solitary confinement cell in the basement of the former chapel and laundry room is reported to have a shadow figure known by the name of George, or simply G. We also left a laser grid, a voice recorder, a night vision video camera, and trigger items in the area that used to be the cafeteria for the inmates. There are numerous reports of violence that occurred in this area, to include an inmate being stabbed and dismembered by fellow prisoners. Witnesses have claimed to have seen shadow figures in this area, as well as hearing voices from unknown origins. Because of the brutality and bloodshed that occurred during the Magnificent 7 massacre, this cell block is reported to have paranormal activity. As such, we covered this area as best we could with our stationary equipment. We left a night vision video camera and trigger items inside of a cell said to be inhabited by a former inmate named James. We also left the night vision video camera and a voice recorder at the entrance to the cell block in an attempt to capture any shadow figures that are said to pace back and forth. We also left the night vision video camera to cover a cell block that is said to have an apparition who appears within the cells. Witnesses have also claimed to have heard voices in this area. We also left the night vision video camera in the cell block where James Earl Ray was held. This cell block is also the location where an inmate jumped to his death and where witnesses have seen an apparition dressed in miner's clothes walking in front of the cell. Finally, we left a night vision video camera and a voice recorder in the former hospital area where voices are said to be heard, a night vision video camera outside in the courtyard where shadow figures have been seen walking down the sidewalk, and in the gymnasium where voices have been heard and apparitions have been seen. After setting up all of our equipment, we met up with Jamie and Tiffany to begin our investigation. Our investigation of Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary lasted almost 7 hours, and during that time we covered each area of the prison as thoroughly as we could. We conducted EVP sessions within the cafeteria and in the cell block where the Magnificent 7 shooting took place. During each EVP session, we tried to communicate with any entity that may be inhabiting the area. We spent time inside of the cell believed to be inhabited by an entity known as James, and within the cell block where an apparition has been seen by numerous witnesses. The night was intense because in each location, we all heard noises, footsteps, and voices that penetrated through the darkness. Whether it was in one of the cell blocks, the cafeteria, the hospital, or the solitary confinement area known as the Hole, it seems that spirits of Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary wanted to let us know that they were near, and that they were aware that we were there to communicate with them. Yo, G. Can you walk around again? You want us to come up? Make a noise and we'll follow you. All right, we're coming up. During our investigation, we all heard voices and noises throughout the night, and our equipment, both stationary and handheld, was able to capture these unexplained occurrences to include footsteps, bangs, and unexplained male voices that seemed to indicate that the spirits knew we were there. For example, during EVP sessions inside of the hole, we were hearing footsteps that seemed to come from directly above us. During one EVP session, when all four of us were standing still, the footsteps seemed to stomp overhead in response to our questions.
Gee, is that you? They used to call you George, but you like to go by G.
What are you doing up there? Are you working?
They used to call you George, but you like to go by G. They used to call you George, but you like to go by G.
During the night, we had left a stationary voice recorder to run on its own inside of the hospital area. At one point during the night, this recorder captures the sounds of footsteps walking up the stairs outside of the door leading into the hospital. At the time of this recording, all four investigators were in another building, which means there was no living thing present during the time this noise was captured. In addition to the footsteps that we captured throughout the night, the silence was also interrupted numerous times by the sounds of bangs and crashes. For example, the stationary audio recorder that we had inside of the cafeteria captured a loud bang when there was no person present in the area at the time. Additionally, the night vision video camera that we left to cover the James Earl Ray cell block also captured its share of paranormal activity. The first instance is interesting because it sounds like something is actually touching the camera, even though all four investigators were in another building at the time. While the preceding audio clips of bangs and footsteps were very interesting to us, the equipment that we set up in all areas of the penitentiary did more than capture noises. Throughout the night, numerous male voices were also captured. As a reminder, all four investigators present that night are female, and we're the only people on the property during that time. We have no explanation as to the origin of the male voices captured in the following clips. During the night, Jenny and I had positioned a night vision video camera to cover the cell block which held James Earl Ray. About 45 minutes after we set up the equipment, and when all investigators were in another building, the video camera captures a male voice saying what we believe is, "Why y'all here?" Another voice capture on this camera occurred about 15 minutes after all 4 investigators had left the area to conduct an EVP session in a cell block on the other side of the prison. The EVP that was captured on this camera is interesting because we believe it is a male voice saying, "Where the ladies at?" The stationary voice recorder that was left to run in the cafeteria also captured an unexplained voice during the night. In this example, the word "help" can be heard whispered in the darkness. The voice recorder that was left to run in the hospital also recorded its share of paranormal activity during the night. Besides the footsteps that we heard earlier, during the evening the recorder also picked up several loud bangs and knocks, along with this EVP of a male saying the name Jet. As we play this recording again, it is worth noting that an inmate by the name of Jack Jet was stabbed 19 times, causing his death. He was reportedly on the phone with his mother when other inmates ambushed him from behind. The night vision video camera that we had set up on the first level of the cell block also captured its share of unexplained events and voices. It seems that during the night, this camera was the object of fascination for something unseen, because it appears that rocks and other objects were thrown at it continuously during the night. Although it happened all throughout the night, what follows is a brief montage of some of what was captured. While facing projectiles from an unknown assailant, this video camera also captured an EVP of a male voice saying what we believe is the name Dave. While other areas of the penitentiary exhibited paranormal activity throughout the night, the bulk of the activity that we captured occurred in the area around where the Magnificent Seven massacre occurred. In this first example, we are all in a cell conducting an EVP session when the voice recorder sitting in the hospital area, which is across the hall from the cell block, captured an EVP that seems to be coming from the breezeway. Although it is hard to decipher because we are talking, we believe we captured a male voice saying, "I'm out here."
Usually it's something somebody on the chat, Usually it's up on somebody in the chat somewhere. Usually it's up on somebody in the chat somewhere.
Finally, the night vision video camera that we left to run stationary during the night in James's cell, which is where the Magnificent Seven massacre occurred, also recorded some interesting EVPs. In this first example, we hear what we believe is a male saying, "What are you doing?" A second EVP was also captured on this camera. We believe a male voice is yelling the word "down," followed by "get on your knees." Keeping in mind that inmates were shot and killed while locked in these cells, this EVP is pretty remarkable to us. The final EVP that was captured on this camera is again a male voice, and we believe that it is saying the name Harrison. As we play this recording twice more, it is worth noting here that one of the black inmates shot during the Magnificent Seven shootings of 1982 was named Robert Harrison Jones. Ensconced within the mountains of Tennessee sits a former penitentiary that bore witness to decades of violence and death. Although it was initially built in the shape of a cross and a chapel was provided for the inmates, Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary was far from a place of salvation and redemption. Rather, it resembled hell on earth, where the worst criminals in Tennessee were incarcerated with lifelong sentences for their crimes. Violence and atrocities were a daily occurrence within the walls of Brushy Mountain, and while the phrase "end of the line" was meant as a nickname for this hardcore prison, for many inmates it became a stark reality because they never left the prison alive. And for the spirits who have remained confined within the prison cells and walls, it seems that the line will never end as they continue their sentences into eternity at Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary.